council members. Thank you for having us. I'm here to introduce Wendy McClure. She's the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the Historic Preservation Commission. I think I've probably been saying that for 3 years straight for her chair. But we've had a lot of challenging projects, a lot of really good projects that we've taken on, and as always, we won't be able to do it without Wendy's leadership and strong work ethic. So turn it over to her. Thanks.
Well, I will correct you on that and say we couldn't do anything without the city staff, including Mike at the top, but also Ann Peterson have been just really a phenomenal support for, and people I probably don't know behind the scenes as well working. But at any rate, thank you for that. So we're right here. That's it? Okay, we got it. So good evening, Mayor Lambert and Council. Thank you for letting us to update you on what the Planning and Zoning Commission has been up to. We've had a lot. I was looking at the report that Mike put together, actually, and thinking, did we really do all that in this 1 year? At any rate, starting with, we always have some turnover during the year, and we have 2 new members, Victoria Seaver and Mike Nelson. Victoria was a loyal member of the audience for many years, and she would come during our period of public comment. Now that has been reduced by at least 50%. We need somebody else to take her place. So we're glad to have her on board, as well as Mike Nelson. Okay, and so I'm going to just tell you a bit about our recent and current projects. Starting with a subcommittee that formed to look of community members, business owners, et cetera, and we looked as a committee at the city's parking standards for off-street, and then that went back to planning and zoning, and we ended up revising some of the standards to allow some discretion by staff instead of requiring conditional use permits, providing incentives, reduced parking demand with appropriately provided bicycle parking that's covered, et cetera, and removing some inconsistencies, and also just working on the landscaping standards and making them more clear and easier to use for larger parking lots. So you can see graphics, picture, several of us are architects on the commission. We all believe in a picture being worth 1,000 words, and certainly the staff has come up with these illustrations to really help people as they look at the off-street parking standards, and it really does help to just see it right there instead of reading a bunch of words about it. So that was part of this initiative. Then another one that's the use table ordinance. Oh, and I forgot to say that Ann Zabala is our new representative this year, so she's learning about what we're up to. But I really appreciate this one in particular. Our zoning code required a lot of plowing through it from page to page and section to section and we've really tried to clean it up. Mike has put a lot of hours into this and brought it before us many times, but looking at taking the zoning code from a narrative to a table format makes it so much easier to use. Many jurisdictions have already used this, and it works really well. Restructuring certain sections, converting, using the terminology that's consistent with the North American Industry Classification System, and which is a standard that's used by the U.S. and other countries to define business establishments, and to just work with a consistent and clear use of definitions. So that it's more understandable. So you can see an example here of what our land use table looks at, where you see along the top line, for example, in residential uses, you see all of the zones, and then below that you see, I mean all the way across all of our zones, I'm sorry. But then also, you know, like a P, you could look at it immediately and see that P means permitted, C means conditional use, and et cetera. or under accessory uses, permitted accessory use. So you can just look at this without having to dig through many pages and chapters of the zoning code to figure it out. It's all kind of one-stop shop. Makes it much easier. And we experimented with a lot of different, I mean, Mike came to us with the work, but we looked at a lot of different formats and came up with this one, and it seemed to really do the trick. Also, this would be an example of bulk and placement regulations, like, you know, how large the setbacks can be. I mean, what various setbacks have to be across the various zones, et cetera. Excuse me. And the size of lots, et cetera. And we also, in coordination with these use tables, also made amendments to the sign regulation to accommodate larger properties that could have more than one sign, and worked on some of the problems with drive-through facilities that have queuing problems, et cetera, trying to when they're trying to set some standards for that, and made some amendments to the off-street parking requirements table so uses correspond to the use table, and you know, pictures worth 1,000 words, using those illustrations to just kind of communicate more effectively the intent. So here you see an example of all the setbacks of typical residential parcel, and what you do when you have a flagpole lot, which some of you may not know what that is, but a flagpole lot is exactly what it looks like. It has a little piece facing the public street that has to be a certain width, and then it goes back to the rear of a lot. And so this shows how you interpret graphically how you measure the setbacks, which was kind of hard to figure out from reading the words. So hopefully this helps. Our other big project has been updating the 2009 comprehensive plan. It's not a full rewrite, it's just kind of making things more current. Some things the P&Z and the city have already accomplished, so striking those sort of out and adding pieces that, clarifying pieces that still need to occur. We've gone through the plan now, I think twice, right, Mike? Completely, chapter by chapter. Each meeting is sort of dedicated to a chapter, and that's been over a year, and we have a public open house scheduled for sometime in May, so people can understand what the updates involve. And significant future projects include looking at how do we handle short-term rentals in Moscow? Not over 30 days, presumably, but the short Airbnb and VRBO. Nils Peterson has come to us several times to talk about his initiative research with tiny homes, and we've been trying to educate ourselves on what that really means. And we will begin really fully discussing the issue in upcoming meetings. Also, our subdivision ordinance, and I believe the city staff planning staff will be in dialogue with county planning staff regarding the area of impact and renegotiating that. That's the boundary around the city, for those of you who don't know. That's kind of the neutral zone, maybe, how you might call it, I don't know. But anyway, an area where the city certainly has impact, but it's not within the city limits directly. So. We also have and this is something anybody in the audience is welcome to look these readings up. When we have time in our schedule, we try to do some continuing education or look for articles that relate to whatever topic is before us or coming up before us. And all of these shared readings are actually on the city website under the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's just a title called Shared Readings, and you can see the variety of topics over the last year, including strong towns, what the role of smaller houses might play within that, what density really means, and density sometimes is a bad word, but density really, if it's accompanied with appropriate design, is a good thing for communities. How sort of strategies to densify appropriately, and our multimodal community, keeping that alive, and walkable in the design of our streets, through streets. And also market analysis. We read the market analysis for Legacy Crossing, which is a really good sort of consultant report about the local economy and projections surrounding that. And also, what happens when malls start to die? How can they be revived? Looking at lots of examples around the country where they've been revitalized by rethinking not the sort of approach we've used over the last 30 years, but what the future is calling for. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you for that good presentation, Wendy. And you are the liaison, council liaison to P&Z. I'll let you go first with something. You want to add anything in?
No question, just a comment. It's been such a pleasure to be a part of that commission and to kind of come in on the tail end of all of the work that you've been doing and see that
on the tail end's a good time. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're glad you're part of us. Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
Well, one thing
Thank you.
I'll say, Ann as a new counselor, she jumped into P&Z, which is a couple of meetings a month and stuff, and there's a lot to it. And boy, for any new counselor, that is a great commission to be on, to learn as a liaison, because there's so many things with that, with the zoning and different things.
Well, we very much appreciate your participation. Too, so. Yes.
Catherine?
I was just, because I was nudging Ann, saying, when I was liaison, we started those things.
Oh, you did? That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
yeah.
actually the comp and the
Right.
chart that Mike was really working the P&Z through. And what was, I just felt like it was, you're doing such a great service with your level of thoroughness and making sure like that things are really understandable. And I felt like the planning and zoning has so much ability to really think forward, and you all are doing that. And I just wanted you to know I enjoyed it very much, and it's a great commission, and you do a lot of work. And what I really liked about Mike so much too is he would bring up so many different cities, what they did as comparatives, for the commissioners, because they didn't have anything to really give it any kind of value, and it helped people kind of weigh things. And so that education, even with the shared readings, allowed people to make thorough decisions and really impartial too. So it was
Right.
good.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I agree, Mike. It just really helps us to be informed when we start tackling the issues. We couldn't do it without him, that's for sure.
Oh.
Any other questions?
Randy?
Oh,
Is
Brandon.
that table available now to look at?
It's, we had a public hearing last week about it, right? And there was no one in the audience, so everybody must think it's working great. But honestly, we decided that was a good sign, and would you really be motivated if you were an architect or a developer to come and sit and, testify at a public hearing if it seemed like it was doing the right thing? So that was our hope, anyway.
Yeah, if you just open up the last Planning and Zoning Commission packet, it'll be there, but this will be advancing on to council, so I will be presenting this to, I think, admin next Monday, and then on to council for the following Monday.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so you can look at it in more detail. Thank you. Or is there any other question?
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Wendy, for the good work you do and for being the chair of that commission. I was on that commission for 5 years in my earlier days of being with the city, and so.
It's a good way to get your feet wet, isn't it?
Absolutely, yep, exactly. So, thank you for all the work you do.